Good morning and welcome back to the Take 10 podcast. This is the show where we're exploring mental health, mental well-being, and all the ways that we can take care of our minds. I am excited to be here with you today. Thank you for listening in to our latest episode talking about all things support systems. Thank you to those that voted on the polls. What I was finding was that it was friends and family that we were finding the most support in when we needed help, and I think that's fantastic. I think that it also highlights just how important social support systems are. And so as we continue to go through our days, I think it just reinforces how important it is for us to be there for our friends and our family members. So always a great reminder, but again, thank you for participating in those polls. So before we jump in today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the setup of this podcast. You know, when I was looking at 2025 and utilizing some AI to help with topics and outlines, as we were drafting that, I wanted to break up episodes into categories so that some of the discussions that we were having had a more common theme. You know, and so if we're kind of not jumping to different places, but some of the topics may not flow perfectly, I think that is why. And so, for example, this first quarter, we've been talking about subjects that I would categorize into, the foundations of mental health and mental well-being. And then as we move on to subsequent quarters, we're going to talk about general themes of, treatments and therapies. We'll dive into specific mental health conditions, and then, some ways that we can build resilience in our own life and help with some practical well-being. And so as we're going through this, just know that all these topics, I'm hoping, are fitting into some categories that when you listen or see them in a 30,000 foot view, they're kind of grouped together. So I wanted to set that stage with our plan moving forward, just so that maybe some of these episodes may make more sense to you. So anyways, I thank you for listening to that. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you're doing well. I hope that 2025 is off to a good start. We are the beginning of February here. We're already looking at halfway through the first quarter type of thing. So hope you're well, and why don't we get into this a little bit, into our topic a little bit more. So for those of you that don't know, I am Ryan, and today our plan is that we're going to dive into a topic that touches all of us, and that is going to be the connection between physical and mental health. And today we're going to explore how the choices that we make for our bodies, like getting enough sleep, staying active, eating well, how all of those decisions can have a huge impact on how we feel mentally and emotionally. As we go through our topic today, I'm going to be sharing some studies behind these ideas so that you can see a little bit about how research supports what we are experiencing in our everyday lives. So I hope that you enjoy. So with that, why don't you grab your favorite mug, your favorite water bottle or whatever, fill it with your favorite drink, Let's buckle up and let's dive in. So, as we begin our discussion, let's start by framing our conversation a little bit. As we've previously talked about, there are differences between mental health and mental well-being, right? And when we talk about our physical health, um, we are really talking about everything from our sleep patterns to our exercise routines and to the daily nutritional choices that we make. So that's physical health. The mental health, on the other hand, refers to our emotional and psychological well-being, how we manage our stress, our mood, stability, and our overall sense of happiness or anxiety. And we covered that in more detail in episode number 1 of this season. So if you want, you can go back and take a look, take a deeper dive into our mental health versus mental well-being. So with that foundation, today we're going to talk about how our overall well-being is impacted by physical health as well. And so you may have already experienced this firsthand. Think about how a restless night has left you feeling off, or even how on a difficult day, maybe a brisk walk in the park or outside of your house can really help clear your mind. And so as we progress today, we're going to unpack these experiences. We're going to do so through science, and we're also going to do that through some real life strategies that we can implement in our daily life. But before we jump into those specifics, again, I wanted to define some terms in a more clear manner. And let's start with physical health. Physical health is about taking care of our bodies, our muscles, our organs, and the systems within our body through practices like getting good sleep, practicing good hygiene, getting regular exercise, and having some proper nutrition. Mental health, meanwhile, is about how we're thinking, feeling, and coping with daily stress. And maybe up until recently, we've thought of these things as isolated aspects of our daily lives, and that isn't true. Our physical health and our mental health and well-being are working in tandem. I also want to kind of put this disclaimer out there before we jump into this topic, that I want to be clear that just by working or focusing on our physical health doesn't mean that one's mental health or any mental illnesses that they may be dealing with will immediately go away just because we're getting good sleep, eating well, and doing exercise. Focusing on our physical health can absolutely help with our well-being and reducing symptoms of certain mental illnesses, but it isn't a 100% solution. So I don't want you to feel like, as part of our conversation, that's what I'm trying to get across. Over the years, though, research, has increasingly shown that our mind and body are deeply intertwined. And what we do for our body directly influences our mood, our cognitive function, and even our resilience to stress. And so we're going to talk through some studies that have helped shape our understanding of this mind and body connection. And as we talk about physical health today, we will be referencing sleep, exercise, and diet as overall physical health. So let's start, and let's start with sleep. Sleep is one of the most basic yet crucial aspects of our physical health. I think we've all been able to experience and know that a good night's sleep can make a world of difference in our day. But, I think it's important that we hear a little bit about what the science says. And also, I am not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. And so A lot of what you hear today is not anything that I've practiced researching for my entire life. It's things that I've done research on as I've gotten ready for this episode. So um, take that for what it is as well. First, I want to consider that, sleep isn't just about resting, it's about repairing our bodies and our minds. When we get and when we practice sleep or when we're sleeping, our brain is able to process emotions, it consolidates memories, and it can even help regulate mood. I think about sleep a little bit like a computer that is completing an update after business hours. It is taking care of things in the background. It's help updating our operating system um, so that it can function properly. It will help um, strengthen our security against viruses and whatnot. And so when we're sleeping, our body's kind of doing a reset and it's getting the updates that it needs. And research shows that a lack of sleep is linked with increased anxiety, with depression, and even impaired cognitive function. There is a gentleman by the name of Matthew Walkers, and he wrote a book, Why We Sleep, in 2017. And in his book, he highlights some findings that demonstrate a strong correlation between poor sleep quality and mood disorders. There have also been some additional studies published, specifically in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine, and they've also reported that individuals with sleep deprivation are more likely to experience heightened stress responses, and also they may experience diminished emotional regulation. Lack of sleep can lead to increases in anxiety and depression because it's disrupting essential brain functions that regulate our emotions, the body's ability to respond to stress, as well as cognitive processing. And here's how it does it. So a lack of sleep, it affects the amygdala, and the amygdala is the brain's emotional processing center. And so when that gets affected, it makes it more reactive to negative stimuli. So when we don't get sleep, our amygdala is unable to process properly, making us as individuals more reactive to negative things in our life. When this happens, we see an increase in our anxiety and emotional instability. Lack of sleep can also lead to impaired stress regulation. So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation. When we get a lack of sleep, it becomes less effective. And when this happens, our body, it makes our body harder to manage stress, which increases the risk of anxiety and depressive symptoms. Lack of sleep also affects our neurotransmitters. Sleep deprivation disrupts both serotonin, dopamine, and cortisol levels within our bodies. And these are all chemicals that are essential for mood stability. So, low serotonin is linked to depression, while increased cortisol, which is the stress hormone, can heighten anxiety. So, when we think about sleep, what can we do? My recommendations would be establishing a consistent sleep schedule, which would be something like every night within a reasonable period, you're going to bed at the same time every night. You're not going to have the midnight and then the 8 p.m. bedtime night, right? Let me clarify that. So on Saturday night, you're not going to bed at midnight, and Sunday night, you're going to bed at 8 p.m., and Monday, you're going to bed at 11, and Tuesday at 7. You want to have a regular sleep pattern where you're going to bed at relatively the same time. Not only should we establish a consistent sleep schedule, but also prior to bed, we should limit screen time. Um, and screen time can impact our ability to sleep due to like blue light. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. I know I've mentioned this topic before. I think I talked about it with Stephanie about Andrew Huberman, and kind of some things that you can do to help us sleep. So we'll talk more. We'll do maybe an episode on that uh, in and of itself. But limiting screen time can really impact our ability to sleep. So maybe dedicate some time prior to bed where you are done with the phone, and maybe you are doing some breathing or meditation or something to get ready for sleep. Which also leads into the third recommendation I have in establishing or things that we can do, and that is creating a relaxing pre-sleep routine. So maybe you're doing some meditation, maybe you're doing some breathing work, just things that are not going to quote unquote rile you up and get your mind really, really racing. Some of these small changes can really lead to some significant improvements, not only in how rested we feel after sleep, but as we get good sleep, it also helps with our mental clarity and our emotional stability as well. So now that we've talked about sleep, let's move on to exercise, which is, another cornerstone of our physical well-being. And getting exercise has far-reaching mental benefits as well. Many of you may have experienced the so-called runner's high, or maybe you felt more energetic after a workout. Those things, the runner's high and feeling more energetic after a workout, is not just in your head. There's some science behind it of these things boosting, your mood. Exercise really does stimulate the production of endorphins, which is our body's natural mood lifters. As we exercise, it also increases the production of something called brain-derived neurotrophic factors, and that is sometimes referred to as BDNF. And this is a protein that supports the growth and survival of our neurons in our body. And these neurons are essential for cognitive function and mental resilience. There was a group of individuals by the name of Blumenthal and colleagues, and they published a study in 1999 in the Archives of Internal Medicine. And their research on older patients with major depression found that those that got regular exercise were, or the benefits were as effective as some traditional treatments in reducing depressive symptoms. This study, along with a book that was kind of popularized in 2008 called Spark by John Ratey, kind of those two things, those two pieces of research really underscore that regular physical activity can lead to some pretty significant improvements in both mood and cognitive performance. So I wanted to talk about some of the key insights from both the study and this book. And as we talk through these insights, please note that these are not coming from me as recommendations as a medical provider, which I'm definitely not. These are just some findings and additional work that has been done. So if you are living with a mental health condition, it's important that you speak to your health provider about any discussion of changes to the care that you're receiving. And anything that I am putting out there is just information and for informational purposes as a potential benefit for improving our mental health. So the first key insight is that exercise is really an antidepressant. In the book Spark, the author explains how physical activity increases levels of the BDNF, which we had just talked about. This helps the neurons grow and connect and is crucial for improving mood and reducing symptoms of depression. Um, he compares exercise to medications like antidepressants, showing how it can be just as effective in treating mild to moderate depression. Number two is that there's an anxiety reduction through exercise. And this is saying that exercise helps regulate the stress response by reducing cortisol levels in our body, which increase GABA and serotonin, which are neurotransmitters that promote relaxation. Within the book, he highlights some studies where aerobic exercise can help significantly reduce anxiety symptoms. Exercise also provides for cognitive enhancement. When we participate in physical activity, it improves our brain function by increasing blood flow and oxygen to the brain. And when this happens, it leads to better focus, better memory, and better learning. In the book, it discusses how exercises enhances neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to adapt and grow, which is essential for learning and problem solving. The book also talks about how exercise can impact ADHD. And in the book, the author presents some research showing that regular physical activity can help individuals with ADHD by increasing dopamine and I'm gonna struggle through this next one. So I'm gonna go with that it increases dopamine and other transmitters that help improve attention and also with impulse control. There was also a study done within the book that showed that schools that incorporated morning exercise programs saw improvement in students' focus and their overall academic performance. Exercise can also help with our stress resilience. And this is because regular exercise strengthens the body's ability to handle stress. The author, Rady, explains how physically active individuals are more resilient to emotional and psychological stressors because their nervous systems are able to recover more quickly from stress responses. They've also done some studies in the book that show that exercise helps with aging. One of the most probably exciting findings that is discussed in the book is that exercise can stimulate the growth of new brain cells. And this is done within the brain in a region that is involved in memory. And so part of the book is talking about how exciting this is because exercise, being able to exercise, especially with individuals that are older, can have some major implications for preventing cognitive decline and diseases like Alzheimer's. So for those of you that are looking to incorporate exercise into your routine, I would recommend starting small. It could be a daily walk, it could be a bike ride around the neighborhood, or it could be a short yoga session. But really the main factor here is that we want to make sure that we're getting consistent movement, because that movement can make a big difference. You know, I think sometimes we think that when we are told that we need to become physically active, that we gotta spend an hour on the treadmill running at, whatever, 7 miles per hour, or we need to do an hour weightlifting session or this super intense, aerobic activity. But really, what the science has shown is that it's even moderate exercise can be linked to improved mood, to reducing stress and and even enhancing your cognitive clarity. So it's okay to do things that are small. You just want to make sure that you're being consistent in moving your body. All right, so we've talked about sleep, we've talked about exercise. Let us jump a little bit more into diet. Um, and within diet, there's this new growing field called nutritional psychiatry, and this explores how what we eat can affect our brain and ultimately our mental health. So you may have heard. I have not heard of this thing. It's called the gut-brain axis. And anyways, it's the idea that our digestive system and our brain communicate in really powerful ways. Um, there was a study or not recently, but a study done in 2017 in this area called the SMILES trial. And this was a randomized controlled trial. And in it, researchers found that dietary improvements, focusing on whole foods and reducing processed items, led to significant reductions in depressive symptoms. And I think this study is a really good example of how modifying our diet can directly impact our mood and our well-being. There's been some other research done, some by a company called Firth and colleagues in 2019. It's reinforced these findings, and it shows that diets that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants and fiber can support better mental health outcomes. And I wanted to talk about some of the research that Firth and colleagues did in 2019, because they analyzed data from multiple randomized controlled trials, and sometimes they refer to those as RCTs. So if I refer to that, just know that it's a random control trial. In their research, they found that there are dietary improvements that help reduce depression symptoms. They found that participants who followed a healthier diet, one that is rich in foods like fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, that those individuals showed significant reductions in depression symptoms compared to those who did not alter their diet. They also found that the Mediterranean and anti-inflammatory diets are particularly beneficial. So diets that emphasize nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory foods, like the Mediterranean diet, were linked to better mental health outcomes. And their reasoning was that these diets can help regulate inflammation, stress, and gut health, all of which have an impact on our mental well-being. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting as they went through their study was that while dietary improvement really helped reduce depression symptoms and mental well-being, the effect on anxiety and diet was less clear. So while they found that there was some evidence that suggested that dietary changes could reduce anxiety symptoms, the impact was less consistent compared to depression. So kind of an interesting thing there. They also found that dietary changes impacted women more than men. And what they really found was that dietary interventions were especially effective in reducing depression symptoms among women. Though in going through some of their research and their study, the reasons for why it impacted women more positively than men was not entirely clear. So something to think about, but definitely an interesting potential implication there. And they also found that there's growing field of nutritional psychiatry is a promising field, and they thought it was a good thing that we continue to examine how diet influences our brain function and how ultimately that would improve our mental health. So, um, we always hear about these diet fads and things that come out that are the new best thing, and so I would be interested to see what progress the field of nutritional psychiatry comes up with, and what they continue to um, find in their research compared to diets and overall well-being. So, what are some of our actionable tips as it relates to diet? Um, based on the research, it may be worth considering incorporating more fruits and vegetables and lean proteins into your meals. Would also want to consider the whole grains, and reducing processed foods and sugars. Reducing these things aren't just good for your waistline, as the research shows. It also can be beneficial for both your mood and your cognitive function as well. Um, again, like exercise, making small dietary changes can have a ripple effect on your overall mental health. So we probably don't have to like go through your cupboard today or this weekend and remove everything that is processed food and go hardcore on this. But I think it's, as you make small and simple um, improvements in these areas, that you're going to see the longer term benefits. When a lot of times, for example, when we're setting New Year's resolutions, um, we go cold turkey on a lot of things, and it might work for a little while. We're coming up on the Super Bowl, uh, and you might have been really good on your diet leading into the Super Bowl, but then all the cheese dips and the pizza and the puppy chow and all that good stuff becomes pretty tempting, and we indulge a little bit, and then we think to ourselves, "Hey, I've already fallen off the wagon. I'm gonna make it this week, and then start good the next week, and then before you know it, we turn around and it's been 6 months, and we haven't really gotten back on. And again, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I guess what I'm really trying to say is that you don't have to cut things out cold turkey. It's, hey, maybe I should eat some more vegetables, and I'm now going to incorporate a what's there's a famous kind of dietary uh, theme of having a green on every plate. So maybe you incorporate that, and then over time you cut out that, instead of having two treats a day, maybe you cut it down to one, and over time you build sustainable change, I guess, is what we're looking for, and so that doesn't have to happen overnight. Okay. I don't know how we got there, but we're there. Okay. So uh look for changes that you can make in your daily life, and then give yourself some grace. All right, there we go. Okay, we've talked about sleep. We've talked about exercise. We've talked about diet individually. Um, but but now I think it's important for us to talk about how they work together to create a holistic approach to our health. Um, Imagine these elements of sleep and exercise and diet as pieces of a puzzle, and each one enhances the other and builds out this very cool picture. And when you're getting enough sleep, you are able to recover more effectively, and when you are able to recover more effectively, it makes physical activity easier, and it also makes it more enjoyable. When you exercise regularly, it helps regulate your sleep patterns and it encourages better eating habits. And as you develop better eating habits, a more balanced diet is going to provide you the energy and the nutrition necessary for both good sleep and for effective workouts. And so it becomes this, upward tornado where it just starts building upon itself, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Maybe you've seen this positive synergy at work. I know that I have. On days when I'm able to get a good night's rest, I wake up and I feel much better. And when I feel better, then I'm probably going to be more willing to work out that evening. And when I work out that evening or during the day, then I'm more inclined to eat well because I've worked out and I don't want to ruin that, right? And when all of these things start to happen, I begin to feel more focused and less stressed, and I feel more capable about handling whatever may come my way. And so, of course, as we integrate these habits, it isn't always easy. We all are going to face barriers like time constraints or even fluctuating motivation. But my advice would be for us to start small. Even incremental changes, like we talked about during exercise and in diet, can really lead to some lasting benefits. And over time, you're going to find that these small steps can create a powerful and positive cycle in your life. As we wrap up today's episode, let's quickly recap what we've discussed. First is sleep. Quality sleep isn't a luxury, it's a necessity for both our physical restoration and our mental clarity. Research like that discussed by Matthew Walker highlights the serious impact that sleep has on our mood and our cognitive function. 2, exercise. Regular physical activity boosts endorphins, it promotes brain health, and studies such as those by the Blumenthal Group and insights from author Rady demonstrate how exercise can be a potent tool against depression and anxiety. And then finally, we talked about diet. What we eat plays a significant role in our mental health. As we talked about during the SMILES trial and other research about nutritional psychiatry, they all show that dietary improvements have an opportunity to lead to better mood regulation, which can reduce depressive symptoms. As we integrate these practices, it can create a powerful and holistic approach to our overall well-being. So, I know that I'm going to start with a small change, and I would encourage you to think about doing so in your world as well. Maybe it's adjusting your sleep schedule. Maybe it's incorporating a short walk into your day, and then gradually building from there. But before we sign off, I would love to hear from you. And specifically, I'd like to hear what small change you are going to make this week to improve your physical and mental health. Maybe you're going to try going to bed at a more reasonable time. Maybe you're going to be a little bit more consistent in your physical activity, or you're going to incorporate some changes to your diet. So I'd be curious to hear what you are going to change and what the results of that change are. So drop those thoughts or even any questions that you have along with your success stories into the comments on Instagram at Take10Vlog or on YouTube at the same name as well. Feel free to reach out. Because I'd love to hear from you and how these things are going. So with that, we are going to go ahead and wrap up today. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Take 10 podcast. I appreciate you being here. um, you are a very special individual because you are tuning into something like this. I've thought a lot recently about, fun podcasts, right? You love the Datelines and learning more about crime and the murder mysteries and how much fun those might be to make and how fun they are to listen to. But the fact that you're here listening to this really underscores that you want to better yourself or to help somebody that you love get better as well. And it's because of that our world will become better, because you are wanting to better it yourselves, and our community will continue to grow. But know that it is through those small and simple acts that great change can come about. And so as you go about your week, as you go about your days, I hope that you remember the good that you're doing, because it is having an impact, whether you know it or not. And so continue your efforts in all that you do. But my challenge this week, as it is every week, is that you be and that you inspire good in all that you do. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much.